powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Adam Caplan's here on a happy hour Friday. Sean Desai speaking today. Some interesting things coming from his press conference. John McMullen asked him about that big nickel package that we talked about earlier this week, a little 3 safety look for the Eagles. Crazy to be a 3 safety look when you don't know who 2 of your safeties might be, let alone a third guy out there. He was asked about Nolan Smith getting some off-ball linebacker reps as well, and a whole bunch of stuff there. But right now, Adam Caplan is in with his camp tour, Football at 4, here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. What's going on, Adam?
Mike, just to educate the audience, an off-the-ball linebacker and a 34 front means an inside linebacker.
Yep.
So this is something we were asked from our Patreon subscribers. We do a chat every Wednesday night, and we said it's possible because he did some of that. Mosher said Jeff saw this in the OTA practice that he was able to see, and this is a way to get him on the field because, Mike, they're very weak at inside linebacker. They have when you look at their depth, we know Dean's their Mike linebacker of the 2 inside linebackers. Nick Morrow and Christian Ellis are the weak side linebackers. Ellis is really pushing Morrow for that job, might win it. But that's it. They don't play Sean Bradley. He's a special teamer. Van Sumeren is a rookie and undrafted free agent. He's got a long way to go. Davion Taylor's there as well. And Kyron Johnson also got some. So he lined up at inside linebacker. So a little bit earlier this week. They're pretty weak there. Again, as I said on your show the other day, I still believe they're, by the time the season starts, anywhere from now till early September, I expect them to somehow add a veteran. They just, if you want to be a Super Bowl team, there's something that the coach's voice taught me. When you lose a starter or it's not working, what is your answer to be better? And the Eagles don't really have that one right now. Ellis is an interesting player, Mike, no doubt about it, but he was an undrafted free agent 2 years ago.
Yeah, that linebacker spot, definitely something. Now, the other thing real quick was, this big nickel that they kind of threw out there with 1 linebacker and 3 safeties. I said, boy, you're going to put 3 safeties on the field out of this group right here?
Yeah, and it's funny. I heard you say that when you introduced me, but Sidney Brown is getting some second-team reps. Look, they don't have very good depth. They have 5 guys who certainly could play, but that doesn't mean you have good depth. And the overall group is not great. Now, Reed Blankenship has been the best performer in training camp. We don't really know what that means yet because they haven't played a game. It's an interesting story, Mike. He started off training camp last year, 3rd string. I look back at my notes, 2nd week, 2nd string. And then we found out, we put it on our show that we said, look, there's only one thing we really know about their secondary in terms of safety. Reed Blankenship's making this team. Like, he's made it. But we didn't really quite know what that would mean until we got to the regular season. We just knew, we were told pretty strongly he's earned a job. But this season, Mike, but who's the playmaker there? They don't really have one. With Gardner Johnson now with Detroit, they just don't have that guy, and that to me is an issue. Yeah,
well, last year I remember this time we were talking about Marcus Epps, and he was the only safety on the team that really had any experience. Like in Marcus Epps, really, it almost feels like it's the same conversation, but now insert Reed Blankenship.
And, Mike, don't forget, on your point, we'll move this further. Gardner Johnson didn't get there till late August. He never practiced with the team till the regular season.
Right.
That's the craziness of that he was able to learn the defense, a complicated defense. Now, the big nickel, it's called a big nickel, and some teams go 5-1-5, where the 34 teams, like the Eagles, some of them, some non-Fangio teams, they might go with a 5-1-5. Here, we know the Eagles play with 3 defensive tackles to start out every game. They did that. All the regular season and playoffs, they started with 3 defensive tackles. We're sort of new here, obviously, Mike. Now, this season, we'll have to see what they do. We did notice in camp, so far they've done some 3D tackle linemen and the 2 overhangs. Which it's by technical terms, it's a 34 front, but it looks like a 5-man front. You've got 3 down guys and 2 guys standing up, who are the overhang players, like Graham and Josh Sweat and Derek Barnett, obviously. We'll see what they do in the regular season, but right now, Mike, they're still trying to figure this out. The 3 safeties is interesting, And it also gets Sidney Brown on the field a little bit more when they do that.
All right. Obviously, the defense will be something to watch next Saturday night when the Eagles open the preseason against the Ravens, and you can hear that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Adam Caplan's camp tour continues. The Dallas Cowboys, you got a chance to see them up close and personal. So what are a couple of observations you have at Cowboys camp?
Mike, this is the most loaded they've been on offense in years. Last year, Michael Gallup, coming back from the ACL injury, was not himself. In fact, he took a pay reduction. He didn't look right. Now he's all the way back. Brandon Cooks, they added him. I love watching him and Gilmore. I believe, when did I fly out there? Monday? That was actually the first. I got right off the plane, flew from LAX to Oxnard, and I saw that practice. We got a great view of it. Cooks versus Stephon Gilmore, that was a great battle. CeeDee Lamb, of course, their main slot receiver is terrific. He'll be their number one pass target. They're a little bit hurting at tight end. Luke Schoonmaker, their second-round pick out of Michigan, who I could tell you that was a surprise that he went in the second round. Schoonmaker's got a partially torn plantar fascia of his foot. That's a problem. Remember, Dalton Schultz signed, who was their starting tight end. He signed with the Texans. They're really light at tight end. That's a problem. But they're very deep at wide receiver. And Tony Pollard, by the way, coming back from the broken ankle, he looks really good. He did not start on PUP. He actually is on their active roster. And he also looked really good. He's been taking first-team reps. The only thing is they don't know who their number 2 running back is. Deuce Vaughn is really small at 5'6". He's more of a changeup. Ronald Jones, who could be the number 2, he's suspended for 2 games to start the season. And that's why they've not closed the door on Ezekiel Elliott, Mike. They really need to re-sign him. They need an insurance policy behind Pollard.
That will be an interesting take, as something to keep an eye on as we go through the Dallas portion of the preseason schedule. What about the Rams? This is a team that should be doesn't have a lot of expectations, should be someone to keep an eye on because they got a lot of big names that were hurt last year.
Yeah, in fact, let's start on offense on that, Mike. Matthew Stafford's back. He looks very good coming off his shoulder injury. He's had elbow problems over his recent career, but he looks fine. You know what's an interesting story for those of you who follow college football? Stetson Bennett is most likely going to be their number 2 quarterback. He is their 4th-round pick out of Georgia. He's a smaller guy. He's barely 5'11", but remember they run a West Coast offense. He's a really good fit for it. He looks pretty good. Mark Rippon's nephew, Brett Rippon, is the 3. Cam Akers is back as the running back. Remember, he got benched last season. They tried to trade him. Nobody wanted him. They almost cut him. They didn't do it, thankfully. He got his starting job back late in the second half of last season. He's firmly entrenched. For those of you who play fantasy, he's the unquestioned starter. Kyron Williams, who's a 5th-rounder last year, is his backup. Williams is more of a change-up, Mike, and he also was coming back from an injury last season. He'll be the backup. Zach Evans is a power back. He's the 3. And here's a big one for you. Van Jefferson, you might remember his dad, Sean Jefferson, who played in the NFL for many years with New England, the Jets, and other teams. He's one of the better receivers coaches. Van had knee surgery last year. He wasn't himself, but he's back all the way. He looks great. He'll start opposite Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp now has a hamstring injury. He definitely will be ready for the season. We'll shut him down a little bit till that gets right. The offensive line's got some serious question marks, and let's not forget defensively. They traded away Jalen Ramsey, and they're very weak at corner. Talking to the Rams about it, they like the competition. They're very young there, but they're not going to be very good there. If you're going to face them, you're going to throw the football, and you should probably have some pretty good luck because they're very young at corner.
I think you just excited fantasy draft fans out there with that Cooper Kupp conversation or nugget there, because I just literally had a guy today say, what do you do with Cooper Kupp in fantasy? Well, Adam Caplan, sounds like you think he'll be ready to go for the start of the season, right?
Yeah, and they may shut him down for a little bit because, look, he's an older player. He's coming back 2 years in a row. He had a serious injury. It's crazy. I was there the practice that he got hurt, Mike. He was only there very early, and he grabbed his hamstring, and they pulled him out. And they're not – the one thing I'll tell you, though, they're not very deep at wide receiver. They've got Puka Nacua, who's a 5th-rounder out of BYU, who's 23 years old. He's had a good camp. Ben Skoranek, who's a taller receiver, probably is a guy who would start for Kupp if there's some kind of problem. And they've got Tutu Atwell, by the way, who's really small. He's 5'6", but really explosive. But they don't have very good depth.
All right, Adam, let's go to the other team in L.A., the Chargers. You got a chance to see them as well, so give us a couple of observations from down in L.A. with the Chargers.
Yeah, boy, you're going to notice a difference with them with Joe Lombardi out. He was let go. He's now back with Sean Payton in Denver. Kellen Moore comes back over from Dallas. As we know, they didn't want him there. Mike McCarthy made the call. Mike wanted to call the plays. And Kellen Moore runs more of a spread. The first thing you're going to notice, because under Lombardi, they were heavy 12 personnel, not anymore. They're going to be heavy 11 personnel. Several reasons why, because he runs a spread anyway. But the big thing is Mike Williams, Quentin Johnson, their first-round pick, Keenan Allen, and Josh Palmer's done a really good job as one of the better backup receivers in the NFL. Gerald Everett, a slot tight end. They're going to be high-tempo, very aggressive throwing the football. Austin Eckler's a great fit for this offense. They're going to be fun to watch. The problem is not the offense now with Kellen Moore. He'll be great. Defensively, they have to be better. They were very inconsistent. You saw what happened in the playoffs. Just an awful choke by their defense, Mike. But the big story for them is J.C. Jackson, their starting corner, who had a patella tendon injury, which is worse than an ACL. I was surprised by this. He was on the field, taking good reps. He looks healthy. Getting him back. No, he didn't play well before he got hurt, Mike, but he's being paid $18 million a season. He's got to play better than he did before he got hurt. But he's all the way back. This is a good story.
Adam Caplan, Football at 4, InsideTheBirds.com, and the Inside the Birds podcast. Your camp tour continuing. And, man, you've been all over the place, those three there. Where else are you heading?
Yeah, so I've seen the Eagles twice. I'm going to be there again Sunday night. I've seen the Giants. That was interesting. Mike, the Giants are good. The roster's a little better, but they kind of surprised people last year. The coaching was terrific. They'll push for a wild card spot. But look, the NFC is clearly not as good as the AFC. But the Giants have an interesting roster. Tomorrow, I will be with the Steelers and talking to them today. They feel really good about their roster. By the way, Andy Weidel's there. They're like a bunch of ex-front office people with the Eagles there. So looking forward to seeing what the Steelers bring to the table. And then next week, I travel to Charlotte. Well, I fly to Charlotte, but I got to drive to Spartanburg, South Carolina. The Panthers are going to host the Jets for a pair of joint practices. Look forward to seeing that.
Oh, nice stuff there. When you were at Giant Camp, did you get a chance to see how they might implore Darren Waller? I'm kind of intrigued by him in that offense with Daboll, because Daboll's a tight end guy.
Yeah, boy, he was dominant. Darren Waller, they had nobody to cover him. He's been the biggest story of their offense. You know, in my report for Pro Football Network a couple weeks ago, the Raiders did not want him. They were the aggressor trying to move him, and the Giants gave up a late third-round pick. I think it was the pick they gave up. It was the pick that they got for Kadarius Toney, but nevertheless, Waller's been incredible. Look, for him, he missed too many games the past 2 seasons, so the Raiders wanted to move him 6 months after they extended his contract, but he looks great. That's big. They need him. They didn't get much out of their tight end position. And if you're a Giants fan, Jalen Hyatt, the third-round pick out of Tennessee, they were not expecting to play much this season for training camp, but I'll tell you what, he looked great. He's been explosive. Now, he's not a guy who's going to get a lot of pass targets. Darius Slayton's ahead of him, Paris Campbell, Isaiah Hodgins, but he's a playmaker. So now that their vertical game will go through Slayton and Hyatt, keep an eye on him.
Adam Caplan, everybody. His training camp tour continues, and check out Inside the Birds podcast and, of course, Football at 4 right here on the Sports Bash, live on 97.3 ESPN. Adam, enjoy the rest of your trip, bud.
Thank you.
All right, Adam Caplan, everybody, with a little insight on the Giants and the Cowboys, Rams and Chargers. But the Cowboys, he said, probably the deepest their offense has been in, this run here. Now the big thing will be Dak Prescott. What Dak Prescott are they going to get?